The galaxy was burning again. On the borders of the Valari Dominion, enemy fleets prowled like wolves, striking at convoys, raiding outposts, and testing the strength of the Empire. The Valari were proud, tall, and elegant, with skin that shimmered, faintly like starlight. For centuries, they had ruled their part of the galaxy with strict order and unmatched technology. Yet now, cracks were forming in their rule. Princess Serenia Valari stood at the high balcony of the royal citadel, gazing out at the twin suns of her homeworld. From here, the entire capital spread below like a sea of silver and crystal towers. War banners waved in the hot wind. The court below was restless. She could hear their voices even here, nobles arguing about new defense fleets, generals fighting over strategy, and counselors whispering that perhaps Serenia herself was not ready to lead. She tightened her hands on the railing. They doubt me. They doubt our strength. And perhaps they are right. The Dominion's armies had fought bravely, but their enemies grew bolder each year. The rival Crack's horde had united half a dozen species under one banner, and now they were pressing at the Valari borders. Serenia's people needed a miracle, but miracles did not come easily. That was when the mercenaries arrived. The Dominion had sent out a call across neutral systems and free stations. Warriors and adventurers from all species were invited to Valari space, promised wealth and honor in exchange for service. Many came. Fierce hunters from the volcanic world of Tarek, sharp-eyed snipers from the misty plains of Durox. Even pirate captains came, hoping to be pardoned for past crimes. But when the ships landed on the Citadel's parade ground, Serenia noticed one figure who did not belong. He was human. Serenia had seen humans before, rarely on the edges of trade routes. They were newcomers to the galactic stage, a young species from a dangerous blue-green planet called Earth. Other races often laughed at them, calling them Death Worlders because they came from a planet full of storms, predators, and unstable climates. They were seen as reckless, fragile, and crude. This human, however, did not look fragile. He stepped from his ship in simple battle armor, scarred from countless fights. A long sword, of all things, was strapped to his back. Though most warriors now carried plasma rifles or energy lances, his eyes were sharp, his movements steady. Unlike the other mercenaries, he carried no banners, no boasts, no companions. He walked alone, like a man who needed no one. The herald announced his name. Commander Aaron Holt of Humanity. The Valari nobles whispered among themselves. A human? Here, among the galaxy's greatest fighters? Serenia herself raised one delicate eyebrow. She had expected predators and warlords, not this quiet, simple warrior. Still, protocol demanded respect. Serenia stepped down from her balcony and entered the grand hall, where the mercenaries gathered to present themselves before the throne. Her father, the Emperor, sat weak and tired upon his seat. Illness had struck him in recent years, leaving much of the burden of leadership upon Serenia's shoulders. One by one, the warriors knelt or boasted of their strength. Some flexed their claws, others fired their weapons into the air to show power. When Aaron Holt's turn came, he did neither. He simply bowed. "I am here to fight," he said in clear, calm words. "Nothing more, nothing less." The court erupted in laughter. A human daring to speak so boldly without ceremony? Some nobles shouted insults. One general sneered, "Do humans even know what true war is? Do they understand honor?" Serenia studied Aaron carefully. His expression did not change. He did not rise to their taunts. The Emperor, weary but curious, raised a hand. Then let him prove himself. And so it was decided. The training arena of the Valari Citadel was a vast circle of shining stone, surrounded by high towers where nobles and soldiers watched. Today, the stands were full. Word had spread quickly. A human warrior was to fight the best of the Valari. Many came only to see him fail. Serenia sat upon the high seat, wearing her silver crown, her eyes fixed on the arena floor. She was not sure why, but her heart beat faster as Aaron Holt stepped forward. His armor bore no sigils. His blade, though old, gleamed with strange markings along the edge. His opponent was General Carvin, the strongest duelist of the Dominion. Carvin's armor was plated with gold, his spear long and humming with plasma energy. He saluted the princess before facing. "Aaron, you will regret stepping onto this floor, human," Carvin growled. Aaron only drew his sword. "We'll see." The duel began. Carvin charged like a storm, spear flashing. His strikes were fast, deadly, practiced from decades of battle. The crowd roared with every movement, but Aaron moved differently. He did not fight like the Valari, who relied on precision and form. He fought with raw instinct, ducking under blows, twisting aside, striking when least expected. Steel rang against plasma, sparks flew. The duel stretched longer than anyone had imagined. Carvin grew angry, his pride wounded. He struck harder, but anger slowed him. Then, with one sharp movement, Aaron knocked the spear aside and placed his sword at Carvin's throat. The arena fell silent. Serenia rose to her feet, eyes wide. A human had defeated their greatest duelist. But Aaron stepped back, lowering his blade. He did not gloat. He did not roar in triumph. He simply nodded once, as if it were nothing. That calmness, that quiet strength. Serenia felt something stir in her heart. Later that night, Serenia went to the archives. She could not stop thinking about the strange markings on Aaron's sword. They had glowed faintly in the duel, symbols like those found in Valari Royal, texts. She opened ancient scrolls and hollow records. Hours passed. At last she found it, an old treaty, long forgotten. It spoke of an alliance between Valari and humans decades ago, sealed with a union between bloodlines. And there, drawn in glowing ink, was the same symbol she had seen on Aaron Holt's blade. Her breath caught. Impossible. Why would a human carry this? Unless... She closed the record quickly, her heart pounding. If the truth was what she feared, then this human warrior was not just a mercenary. He was connected to her people, perhaps even to her. And so the princess watched Aaron Holt from the shadows of the citadel, trying to understand the mystery. A human among nobles, a warrior who fought like no other, and a man who carried the markings of her dynasty without knowing why. The galaxy was on the edge of war. Enemies gathered at the borders. The Valari needed strength, courage, and unity. Perhaps this strange human warrior was the beginning of something greater. But Serenia did not yet know the truth. Not yet, for now she only felt the first spark of astonishment and the first shadow of destiny. The citadel of the Valari glowed like silver fire beneath the twin suns, but inside its tall towers, shadows were growing. Princess Serenia Valari walked quickly through the royal archives, her robe brushing against the smooth crystal floors. She could not sleep since the duel. The image of the human warrior's sword kept haunting her mind. The markings were too familiar. They were not random. They belonged to her own dynasty, the royal house of Valari. She reached the hidden chamber of records, a place only the royal bloodline could enter. A guardian crystal scanned her palm. Then the heavy doors slid open with a low hum. Inside, thousands of ancient scrolls and glowing hollow tablets floated gently in the air. Here, history itself was stored. Serenia's eyes moved quickly across. Old treaties, battle records, and forgotten promises. At last, she found it again. The treaty from long ago. It spoke of an alliance between her people and a rising young species called humanity. At the time, the Valari had been locked in another war and sought unusual allies. The treaty was strange. Instead of being only about trade or weapons, it mentioned union through bond, a symbolic marriage, uniting both species in trust. The words were poetic. Where the stars meet, Valari and human shall share blood and vow, and through their bond peace shall be secured. Serenya's hands trembled as she traced the glowing symbols, and there in the margin was the crest of the Valari royal family, the same design etched into Aaron Holt's blade. She whispered to herself, "It cannot be. He cannot be tied to me." But the truth was there, clear as the sun's outside. The sword Aaron carried was proof of a vow made long ago. And if that vow had been passed down through his bloodline, then this human warrior was not just a mercenary. He was connected to her. The next morning, Serenya met Aaron in the Citadel Gardens. He was alone, as always, sharpening his sword with calm focus. She approached him slowly, studying the strange man who had turned her world upside down. He looked ordinary in some ways, shorter than most Valari warriors, with no shimmering skin or glowing eyes. But there was something solid about him, a strength that came not from looks, but from presence. "You fought well yesterday," Serenya said, her voice cool but measured. Aaron glanced at her, then nodded once. "Thank you, Princess." "You are not surprised you won against General Carvin?" He shrugged. "War is not about surprise. It is about survival. I fight to survive, always." Serenya tilted her head, curious. "And yet, you fight with honor. You spared him when you could have humiliated him." Aaron's gaze hardened. Victory without honor is meaningless. For a moment, silence hung between them. The fountain behind them whispered softly, and birds sang in the high branches. Serenya studied him carefully. This human was not like the others she had seen, loud traders, reckless miners, or wandering drifters. He carried himself with quiet weight, as if he bore the burdens of many battles. Finally, Serenya asked, "Your sword, where did you get it?" Aaron looked down at the blade. His fingers brushed the ancient symbols. "It was passed down in my family. My father gave it to me before he died. He said it was a legacy. I don't know more than that." "Why?" Serenya's chest tightened. "So he doesn't know. He has no idea." She forced her voice to remain calm. "No reason. Only curiosity." But inside her thoughts were racing. He is the heir of the vow. The bloodline promise is alive in him. That means, by law, he is bound to me. She could not bring herself to say it. Not yet. Days passed, and Serenya found herself watching Aaron more closely. She told herself it was only to understand him, to see if he was worthy of the Valari cause. But deep down, another reason grew, one she did not want to admit. When the council gathered to discuss strategy, Serenya sat beside her father, listening to endless arguments. Some generals demanded more fleets. Some nobles wanted to retreat from the borders. The empire was fractured. Aaron stood at the edge of the chamber, silent. When Serenya finally asked his opinion, the court gasped in outrage. "You ask a human to speak in the Council of Stars?" One noble spat, but Serenya ignored them. She wanted to hear his thoughts. Aaron spoke plainly. "Your enemies are united because they fight with one goal: to take what you have. You are divided because you fear losing what you already hold. Fear will destroy you faster than war. If you want to survive, you must stand together, or you will fall apart." The chamber fell silent. Even the emperor leaned forward, listening. The nobles scoffed, but Serenya saw wisdom in his words. He spoke not as a mercenary seeking gold, but as a man who had lived through survival. After the meeting, Serenya walked with him through the long, marble corridors. You speak boldly for an outsider. Aaron shrugged. I've seen enough wars to know what happens when leaders hide behind fear. You speak as if you have led men before. His jaw tightened. I have. Too many. And I've buried too many as well. For the first time, Serenya felt the weight behind his calmness. This was not arrogance. It was experience. Pain carried silently, as all great warriors did. That night, the citadel trembled. Alarms blared through the towers. Enemy raiders from the Crack's horde had slipped past the border patrols and struck at the heart of the Valari capital. Explosions lit the sky as small attack ships rained fire on the outer districts. Serenya rushed to the command balcony, shouting orders. Valari guards scrambled to defend the city, but the enemy had already breached too close. One raider squad burst into the palace itself, weapons blazing. Serenya's guards fell quickly, caught off guard. She tried to summon her energy blade, but there were too many. Then Aaron appeared. He charged through the smoke with his sword, cutting down 2 raiders in a single swing. His movements were fast, brutal, efficient. He grabbed Serenya's arm, pulling her behind him as more enemies rushed in. Plasma bolts flew past. "Stay down!" Aaron barked. He fought like a storm unleashed. Where Valari warriors moved with elegance and form, Aaron fought with raw survival. He used the walls, the pillars, even the enemy's own weapons against them. By the time reinforcements arrived, a dozen raiders lay broken on the floor. Serenya stared at him in shock. Her heart was pounding, not only from fear, but from something else. "Oh, you saved me," she whispered. Aaron only sheathed his sword. "I did what anyone would." But Serenya knew that was not true. Many would have fled. Many would have thought first of themselves. But this human had stood firm against impossible odds to protect her. The next day, an elder of the royal family came to Serenya in private. Elder Kalen was ancient, his skin dim with age, but his eyes still sharp. "You know the truth now, don't you?" he said quietly. Serenya froze. "What truth?" "The human, his blade, the treaty. Do not pretend you do not see it. He is the heir of the vow, princess. By our own laws, by the will of history itself. He is your rightful husband." Serenya's breath caught. Hearing the words aloud made them heavier, more real. "No," she whispered. "It cannot be. He is human. He is nothing like us." Elder Kalen shook his head slowly. "And yet, perhaps that is why the vow was made. To bind what is different, to make strong what is weak alone. You can deny it, child, but destiny has already chosen." Serenya turned away, her heart in chaos. She could not accept it. Not now. Not when the galaxy was burning. But as she walked back to her chambers, one truth echoed in her mind, no matter how she tried to silence it. The human warrior, Aaron Holt, was not just her protector. He was her husband, by ancient law, by bloodline promise, and by destiny. The revelation did not leave Serenya's mind. Elder Kalen's words echoed inside her chest, like a bell that would not stop ringing. "He is your rightful husband." The words sounded impossible, yet the evidence was too clear to deny. Aaron Holt's sword bore the markings of her dynasty. The treaty was real, and his bloodline had carried the vow forward without even knowing it. But how could this be? How could she, princess of the Valari dominion, heir to an empire of shining towers, be bound to a human? Serenya sat in her private chamber, her hands pressed against her face. The suns had long since set, leaving the city bathed in silver. Night. She tried to calm herself, but her heart would not listen. "He is brave," she thought bitterly. "He is honorable. He saved me without hesitation. But he is still human. He cannot be my equal. He cannot rule beside me. And yet, She remembered his steady eyes in the council, his words that cut through fear, his courage in the duel, the way he had stood between her and death when the raiders attacked. Her soul was torn in two. The next morning, the great hall of the citadel, filled with voices. The court had gathered to discuss the raid and the growing threat of the Crack's horde. Nobles sat in tall chairs, their robes glittering, their faces proud and cold. Generals lined the lower steps, their armor polished like mirrors. Serenia walked to her seat with her head held high, but inside her thoughts were restless. Aaron Holt stood at the edge of the hall again, silent as ever, his sword at his back. The nobles noticed him at once. "Why is he here?" one of them snapped. "A human has no place in this hall," another sneered. "Your Highness, he is a mercenary, not a counselor." Serenia raised her hand for silence, but before she could speak, Elder Kalen rose slowly from his seat. His voice was thin but sharp. "You call him mercenary, but by law older than any of you, this man has claim to stand here." The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to him. "What do you mean?" one noble demanded. Kalen's eyes gleamed. "I speak of the Treaty of Union, a bond sealed by our ancestors with the humans, a bond that joined our royal bloodline to theirs. This man carries the sword of vow. He is not merely a warrior. He is—" "Enough!" Serenia's voice cracked across the hall before he could finish. Everyone froze. Serenia's heart pounded in her chest. If the truth was spoken here, in front of all, chaos would erupt. The nobles would never accept it. The generals would revolt. She forced her voice steady. "The matter of treaties and vows is for the royal family alone, not for this chamber." But whispers had already begun to spread like wildfire. Union, human, husband, bloodline. Aaron's brow furrowed. He looked at Serenia with confusion, as if he too was hearing pieces of a puzzle he did not understand. When the council ended, he found her in the garden. "Princess," he said firmly. "What was that about? What treaty? Why did the elder speak of me as if I were more than a warrior?" Serenia turned away, her face pale. She could not answer. If she spoke the truth now, everything would break. "Forget it," she said quietly. "It means nothing." But Aaron stepped closer. "It means something. I have fought my whole life not knowing why my family carried this sword. Now I see Valari symbols on it, and your elder speaks of vows. You know the truth. Tell me." Serenia's chest tightened. His eyes were so steady, so demanding of honesty. She wanted to tell him. She wanted to share the weight. But fear held her back. "You are here to fight for the Dominion," she said coldly. "That is all that matters. Nothing else." And she walked away before he could stop her. The court, however, was not silent. The whispers grew louder each day. Nobles gathered in private chambers, speaking of scandal. Some feared the prophecy of the Union, others mocked it. But many began to use it as a weapon against Serenia. "If she is truly bound to a human, how can she lead us?" they whispered. "She will bring shame to the throne. She is unfit." The High Council soon demanded proof. If Aaron Holt was truly tied to the royal line, he must undergo the trial of the Starforge, the ancient test meant for rulers' chosen consorts. It was not a trial of strength alone, but of spirit, mind, and courage. Serenia opposed it. "This is madness. He is not Valari. He cannot be expected to endure what was made for us." But the council pressed harder. If she refused, it would look like fear. Finally, Aaron himself spoke. "I will do it," the chamber gasped. Serenia turned to him in shock. "You don't understand. These trials are meant to break even Valari nobles. You could die." Aaron only met her gaze calmly. "If this will end the whispers, then I will face it." I have lived my life by trial. One more will not stop me. The trial of the Star Forge was held in the ancient arena outside the capital. The structure was carved into a great mountain, glowing with molten veins of fire. Legends said it was built where the first Valari ship was forged from the heart of a star. Crowds gathered to witness. Nobles filled the high seats, their eyes eager to see the human fail. Serenia sat among them, her stomach heavy with dread. Aaron walked into the arena alone, armed only with his sword. The first test was the trial of flame. A river of molten fire split the arena. Aaron was ordered to cross with nothing but his wits. Valari champions used energy shields for protection, but Aaron had none. He studied the fire, then tore strips from his armor to bind around his hands. He waited, watching the bursts of flame rise and fall like waves. Then, timing his movements, he leapt from stone to stone, enduring the heat with grit and instinct. When he reached the other side, the crowd murmured in surprise. The second test was the trial of shadow. In a pitch-black cavern, illusions of fear appeared, phantoms drawn from the mind. Valari nobles often lost themselves in terror here. Aaron stepped into the darkness. Shapes rose around him. Fallen comrades, enemies with glowing eyes, the faces of the dead. He stood still, his hand on his sword, his breath steady. "I know you're not real," he muttered. "I've carried you all my life. You don't scare me anymore." And with that, the shadows melted away. The third and final test was the trial of unity. Aaron was given a broken star crystal and told to repair it using only what the arena offered. It was a puzzle of energy and logic, something Valari nobles studied for decades. The crowd expected him to fail, but Aaron studied the pieces differently. Instead of trying to restore it to its original form, he rearranged them into a new pattern, creating a crystal blade that hummed with power. He lifted it high. The arena shone with light. The elders gasped. It was not the solution they expected, but it was a solution, a human solution. Adaptable, creative, unorthodox. Aaron Holt had passed the trial of the Starforge. The crowd erupted with noise. Some shouted in anger, others in awe. Serenia's heart pounded as she rose to her feet. She looked down at the human warrior standing. In the light of the crystal, sweat and dust on his face, but his eyes calm and strong. In that moment, she felt the last pieces of doubt breaking inside her. He had done what even Valari nobles struggled to do. He had proven himself, not as a Valari, but as himself, yet the nobles were furious. "This is a mockery," one cried. "He twisted the trial. He is not one of us." But the people, the common Valari who filled the lower seats, began to chant, "Aaron Holt! Aaron Holt!" For the first time, Serenia realized the people admired him. They saw in him the strength they had been missing. Aaron sheathed his sword and looked up at her. Their eyes met across the arena, and Serenia, for the first time, felt her heart whisper, "Perhaps destiny knew better than I did." But still, she was afraid, because if she accepted him, the court would turn against her. The air in the capital grew heavy with fear. For weeks after the trial of the Starforge, the Valari court remained divided. Some nobles still mocked Aaron Holt as nothing more than a death-world barbarian, while others whispered of destiny and the treaty bond. But even as they argued, the enemy moved closer. The Crack's horde had gathered its forces. Reports poured in of fleets burning border stations, of colonies enslaved, of planets reduced to ash. The Cracks were not just raiders anymore. They were united, under a single warlord, a monstrous being called Vorak the Unbroken. One counselor spoke in despair. "They are coming straight for us." For the capital itself. The emperor, weak with illness, looked to his daughter. Serenia rose, her voice steady, but her heart heavy. "Then we will meet them here. We will not flee." But the nobles shouted at once. Impossible! Their fleet is too strong! We must retreat deeper into our territory. To stand and fight is suicide! It was Aaron who cut through their fear. He stepped forward, his voice calm but sharp. If you retreat, you will only delay your death. The cracks want your heart. They will not stop until they break it. If you want to survive, you must fight. Here. And you must fight as one. The nobles scoffed. What do you know of war, human? Aaron's eyes darkened. I know enough. I have seen what happens when fear rules instead of courage. Do you want to be remembered as rulers who fled while your people burned, or as leaders who stood and fought? The chamber fell into silence. Even the nobles who hated him could not find words. Finally, Serenia stood beside him. He is right. We will fight. And I will lead, with him at my side. Gasps filled the hall. It was the first time she had spoken openly of Aaron as more than just a warrior. Some nobles stormed, out in fury, but others bowed their heads, unable to deny the truth. War was upon them. The skies above the Valari capital darkened days later. Enemy ships filled the heavens, thousands of black, jagged warships stretching across space like a storm. The Cracks' horde had arrived. The Valari defense fleet rose to meet them, sleek silver cruisers with glowing wings of energy. But even with their advanced ships, they were outnumbered. On the command bridge of the flagship Starseeker, Serenia stood in her royal armor, her crown glowing faintly. Beside her was Aaron, wearing battered but polished human combat gear, his sword across his back. Enemy fleet detected, said the sensor officer. Estimated strength, triple our numbers. Murmurs of fear spread across the bridge. Aaron leaned forward, studying the star map. His voice was steady. Numbers aren't everything. They expect you to fight their way. Line against line, fleet against fleet. Don't. Break their formation. Strike where they are weak. Use speed, not strength. The Valari generals frowned. That is not how we fight. We are Valari. We hold formation. Aaron's eyes hardened. And that's why you lose. You fight like a wall. Walls can be broken. Humans fight like fire. We spread, we change, we burn through cracks. If you... Listen to me, we can win. For a moment, the bridge was tense. Then Serenia raised her hand. Do as he says. The generals looked shocked, but Serenia's voice carried command. They obeyed. The battle began. The Cracks' fleet charged, their heavy ships spitting fire. The Valari fleet scattered into smaller wings, darting in every direction. Instead of facing the enemy head-on, they struck from angles, diving into gaps, vanishing before counterattacks. Aaron's strategy confused the Cracks. Their warlord roared in fury as his formation broke apart. Valari ships darted in like hawks, striking supply carriers, cutting off command relays, destroying engines instead of wasting time on shields. For the first time, the Valari began to push the enemy back. On the flagship bridge, Serenia watched, with awe as Aaron calmly directed the flow of the battle. He saw openings no Valari had seen. He used chaos itself as a weapon. You fight like a star burning out of control, Serenia whispered. Aaron gave a faint smile. And that's why they can't stop me. But the battle was far from over. Vorak the Unbroken unleashed his strongest weapon, colossal dreadnoughts armed with planetary cannons. One beam fired, and a Valari cruiser vanished in an instant. Panic spread across the fleet. Aaron's voice cut through the fear. They're too strong to face directly, but no ship is invincible. Every weapon has a blind spot. He pointed to the map. There, beneath their main cannon housing. If we strike there, we can overload their cores. Serenia's eyes narrowed. It is dangerous. Whoever flies that close may not return. Aaron met her gaze. Then I'll go. She grabbed his arm sharply. No, you are not just a warrior. You are... She stopped, her heart leaping. She almost said my husband, but the words stuck in her throat. You are too important. Aaron's eyes softened. For a moment, the war around them seemed far away. Then he said quietly, sometimes the only way to protect what's important is to take the risk yourself. Aaron launched in a strike fighter, leading a small wing of Valari pilots. The sleek ships streaked toward the massive dreadnoughts. Plasma fire lit the skies like suns exploding. Enemy fighters swarmed them. Valari pilots fell one by one. But Aaron fought with reckless courage, weaving through fire, striking enemies in swift bursts. He had no Valari grace, only raw survival instinct, but it was enough. He dived straight toward the dreadnought's cannon. The massive weapon powered up, light gathering at its tip. Almost there, he muttered. Enemy ships closed in on him. His wing was nearly destroyed, but at the last second, Serenya's voice came through his comm. You are not alone, Aaron Holt. Her personal guard fleet swept in, clearing the path. Serenya herself flew at the front, her ship glowing with the royal crest. Together, they plunged into the cannon's blind spot. Aaron fired his missiles into the exposed core. The dreadnought shuddered. Light burst from its hull. Pull back, he shouted. The ships broke away, just as the dreadnought exploded, ripping itself apart in a chain reaction. The blast lit the entire battlefield. The Crack's fleet faltered. Their greatest weapon had fallen. On the flagship bridge, cheers erupted. Valari soldiers shouted Aaron's name. For the first time in living memory, hope filled their voices. But Vorak the Unbroken was not done. His personal warship, larger than any other, cut through the chaos. It fired straight toward the capital. Aaron landed back on the flagship, running to the command deck. We have to stop him here. If he reaches the city, everything is lost. Serenya stood tall, her voice strong. Then we fight together. The Star Seeker and Vorak's flagship clashed in the skies above the capital. Fire and plasma tore across the heavens. Valari soldiers fought with renewed courage, inspired by Aaron's defiance. Humans from nearby colonies, who had joined under Aaron's banner, fought beside them, their crude but powerful weapons surprising the Cracks. For hours, the battle raged. Finally, Aaron and Serenya stood side by side at the command console, guiding the last strike. Now! Aaron shouted. The Starseeker's cannons fired in unison, striking the Crack's warship's core. The ship exploded in a thunderstorm of fire, tearing the sky apart. Vorak the Unbroken was no more. Silence followed. Then the Valari fleet roared with victory. The Crack survivors scattered, broken and leaderless. The capital was saved. On the command deck, Serenya turned to Aaron. Her silver eyes shone with pride and something deeper. You have done what none of us believed possible, she said softly. You gave us more than victory. You gave us courage again. Aaron, weary but calm, shook his head. No, we did this. Together. Their eyes met, and for a moment, words were not needed. The bond between them was no longer just law or destiny. It was choice. It was trust. But outside the bridge, the galaxy was watching, and news would spread quickly. A human warrior had stood at the side of the Valari princess, and together they had broken the greatest horde in living memory. The nobles could no longer deny him. The people already hailed him. The course of history had changed. The Valari capital was alive with celebration. The twin suns rose over the silver towers, casting golden light on streets crowded with citizens, waving banners and cheering. After the defeat of the Crack's horde, hope had returned to the galaxy. But among the cheering crowd, Princess Serenya Valari walked with her thoughts heavy. Victory had been hard won. Countless lives had been lost. And yet, she could not stop thinking of Aaron Holt. The human warrior had not only saved the capital, but had also changed the very way the Valari fought. Stories of his daring actions in the skies above the city spread like wildfire. Children played with toy ships, imagining themselves flying beside him. Merchants spoke of him with reverence. Even nobles who had scorned him were forced to acknowledge his skill, but to Serenia he was more than a hero. She walked through the palace gardens, the flowers glowing faintly under the morning suns, and saw Aaron waiting. He was alone, leaning against a marble pillar, his sword sheathed at his back. "You look tired," she said softly, approaching him. Aaron smiled faintly. "And you look exhausted. You fought as much in council as I did in the skies." Serenia laughed quietly, a sound rare for her. "I suppose so, but it was worth it, wasn't it?" Aaron looked at the city beyond the gardens, where citizens were singing songs of victory. "Yes, but there is still much to do. The cracks are not gone completely. They will regroup, and other threats will come." Serenia nodded. "Then we will face them together, as leaders, not just warriors." Aaron's eyes softened. "Together, Princess." The High Council soon convened again, this time not in anger but in necessity. The Crack's defeat had given Aaron recognition, but the nobles were cautious. Many had resisted the idea of a human holding a position of influence. Serenia spoke first. Her voice rang out strong, echoing through the grand chamber. "Aaron Holt is not merely a warrior. He is my consort, my partner, and my equal. He has passed every trial, faced every danger, and proven his worth to the Dominion. He will stand beside me, as destiny intended." Gasps spread across the chamber. Some nobles rose in protest. "This is unprecedented. A human, our princess's consort." Aaron stepped forward calmly. "I am not asking for titles or power. I ask only for the chance to serve alongside the princess in defense of our people. Nothing more, nothing less." The emperor, still weak but proud, raised a hand. "Let it be known. The Treaty of Union is real. Aaron Holt shall hold his place at the side of Princess Serenia, as promised centuries ago. The law and the vow are honored today." The chamber fell silent. Slowly, some nobles bowed their heads in respect, recognizing both law and courage. Others remained defiant, but the tide of approval could not be stopped. Serenia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to breathe freely. Days later, the royal palace prepared for a ceremony unlike any seen in Valari history. The union of blood and vow would be held publicly, uniting the princess and the human warrior, in sight of the entire Dominion. The streets overflowed with citizens. Merchants sold small silver charms of swords and crowns. Children waved glowing ribbons. For many, this was more than a ceremony. It was a symbol of hope, courage, and unity. Serenia wore her ceremonial robes, silver and blue, trimmed with the light of the twin suns. Her crown gleamed. She felt the eyes of the galaxy upon her, not as a frightened princess, but as a ruler ready to embrace her destiny. Aaron stood beside her, wearing ceremonial armor adorned with Valari symbols. His sword hung at his side, but it was not the weapon that caught attention. It was the quiet, strength in his posture, the calm confidence in his eyes. He was no longer just a human warrior. He was a leader in his own right, accepted by the people because he had earned it. When the ceremony began, Elder Kalen spoke first, his voice echoing across the plaza. "Today, we honor not only a vow made centuries ago, but the courage, wisdom, and unity that bind our people. Princess Serenia and Aaron Holt, by law and by heart, are joined in bond. May their strength guide the Dominion through all challenges." Serenia felt Aaron's hand brush hers. It was the first touch not of protection, but of partnership. She looked into his eyes and saw the same awe and trust that she had always felt, now mirrored in him. "I accept," she said, her voice clear and steady. Aaron nodded, his hand closing over hers. I accept as well. A wave of applause and cheers rolled through the crowd. Citizens wept in joy, soldiers saluted. Even the nobles, some still grumbling, could not ignore the sense of history being made. In the weeks that followed, Aaron and Serenia worked together to rebuild the Dominion. The crack's survivors were hunted down or expelled. Trade routes reopened, refugees returned to their homes, and throughout it all, the human warrior's perspective brought new ideas to Valari society, strategies in defense, diplomacy, and even training methods for soldiers. Serenia learned to rely on him not only in battle but in governance. Where she had once felt alone in her crown, she now had a partner whose courage and wisdom complemented her own. One evening, standing on the balcony of the citadel, the two of them watched the twin suns set. You changed everything, Serenia said softly. Aaron looked at her, a faint smile on his face. No, we changed everything. Together. Her heart lifted. I was afraid that I could not accept what destiny demanded. He took her hand in his. Destiny only asks for courage, and you have shown more than enough. For the first time, she felt free from doubt, free from fear, and ready to embrace the future. Word spread throughout the galaxy of the human warrior who had stood at the side of the Valari princess and helped save the Dominion. Other species began to reconsider their view of humanity. Where once humans had been dismissed as fragile death-worlders, now they were seen as adaptable, strong, and clever. Tales of Aaron Holt's courage spread like wildfire, the duels, the raids, the strategy in the starfields. Humans became symbols of hope, and Valari respect for them deepened. It was a beginning of a new era, a time when courage and wisdom mattered more than race or origin. In the quiet of their chambers, Serenia finally spoke the words she had held back for so long. Aaron, I once feared that you were too different from me. He smiled softly. And now? Now, she said, her voice firm. I see that our differences make us stronger. Together we are unstoppable. Together we can protect our people and our galaxy. He drew her into a gentle embrace. Then let us face the future together, as partners, as equals, and as one. The stars outside shone brighter than ever. For the first time in centuries, the Valari Dominion felt not only safe, but alive with hope. And in that light, Princess Serenia and Aaron Holt, human and Valari, warrior and leader, stood side by side, ready to guide their people into a new age of unity, courage, and honor. The galaxy would remember this day, the day a human warrior became more than a soldier, the day a princess saw past fear and tradition to recognize courage and heart, the day destiny was fulfilled.